Welcome back. It's been a long winter, a long off season, but we're back here on Monday, February 24th, right at the beginning of spring training for a new episode on a new season of Bullpen Banter.
Baseball Let's go.
How are you feeling, fellas?
I don't think I'd ever get excited to get on a Zoom call with you again, Ian. I don't know. I'm really pumped. No, I'm just kidding, bud. Got my winter beard going. I still haven't sneaked her up for spring yet, but that's okay. The trucks are still south, so we'll be back soon up in Rogers Center. I can't wait to go to that first game. Avoid the loony dogs, but you know.
Yeah, I'm a little shaggy myself, man. I might have to get a little buzz cut going. Dalton Varsho, Matt Chapman style. The last couple of years,
everybody's cut their hair, bro. Barger, Bo, Vlad. It's all gone now. It must be the trend.
It's a new wave.
Hopefully it works. That's all I care about.
Well, that's what we're about to dive into. That's for sure.
Yeah, and obviously it worked pretty well for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who is the hottest topic in the maybe not even just the Blue Jays news cycle, but the baseball news cycle in general lately, with every other big market team pretty much with their fan base at least looking to hopefully poach him come next season, now that his self-imposed deadline to extend with the Blue Jays beyond this last year of team control has passed. It was set for it was the Tuesday, February 18th, the first day of team workouts. Obviously no extension came to fruition. There was some, a bunch of different comments of varying kind of information made by both Vlad himself and Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro during their media availabilities that morning. So what are you guys feeling like? What are your kind of thoughts on how that all went down?
Well, when we woke up that morning and saw the tweet that they were all meeting the media separately, that basically told us like, oh no, the nightmare has come true. Like, we had such a good chance to lock up Vlad, but I mean, we've talked a lot off the pod about how both sides have exterior influences to not do a deal right now, and I think both sides are to blame a bit, and we can dig into that more as we go through this conversation. But Juan Soto deal definitely didn't help, and you cannot sit there and say the Shohei or Soto deals over the last 2 years didn't impact Vlad's number. I just don't think that's a logical thing to say. Like, Vlad didn't see those two numbers, and his price tag obviously rose because that's a market. That's how it rolls. So if you want to find one problem, it's like, I think they should have locked him up sooner. And that's what everyone's saying, obviously. Like, look what AA did with the Braves. He's got all of them boys locked up before they were even legal drinking age. Like, it was crazy. Like, and so we saw they waited and they got burnt by two massive contracts. And that drove Vladdy's contract through the roof. And I think that's the truth.
Ken Rosenthal was on Sportsnet Central that Tuesday talking about it, and he was like, they had an opportunity after Tatis signed whatever his contract was to lock him down, and they didn't. And the front office basically operates like with their analytics and everything, and they think what they're doing is right, and they have the number and they stick to it. And while that can be good, it could also burn you, right? Which we see here. Like on Tuesday, sorry, my dog's being very annoying in the back. On Tuesday, or Monday, I was constantly refreshing Twitter, and I'm just like, why is nothing going on? Why is nothing going on? Right. And then Keegan Matheson was just like giving me a little bit of optimism, being like, you know what? Tuesday morning when Vlad walks in here, that's the hard deadline. Till then, anything could happen. And then, like you said, I wake up Tuesday morning, I'm like, shit.
Yeah. So that Tatis contract, $340 million, 14 years. And at the time, if I'm correct here, I have it up, was the third largest contract in MLB history after Mike Trout and Mookie Betts.
Yeah, it was really one of the first big bangers that we saw come to fruition.
And I mean, Vlad wouldn't have, Tatis at the time was playing a premium position. So like Vlad wouldn't have signed for that. But it would have been like, I don't know what the exact number was thrown around at the time, but probably something substantial, like probably approaching 300 million. And at the time, probably a lot of people, but he was also coming off that season where his value was super high. And I think like, yeah, hindsight is 2020. Definitely looking back, either after the 2021 MVP finalist season or after 2023, that's this time last year, probably would have been good times to get deals done. He's always said he's been open to a deal. He's still saying that in his press conference last week. But you couldn't have done it. I don't think after 2022, after the down year, like he wouldn't have been willing to do it, I'm sure, at that time. So, and I think the biggest like factor with this really is the age that he's hitting free agency at. Like you look at like Soto was another example of that in terms of like guys don't often hit free agency. You're not able to lock them up for this many years of their prime, and teams are willing to pay that extra premium on top of what they usually would for that kind of unique opportunity. So yeah, I think that's kind of one of the biggest factors at play with Vlad here. And yeah, it is. I feel like it is like really unfortunate, honestly, just because he has said he wants to be in Toronto. He loves it here. He wants to spend his whole career here. All the it's quoted countless times, like kind of conveying that.
I mean, yeah, he's a generational player that is a Canadian citizen playing in Toronto. It's there's no doubt in my mind like that's the reason there's so much scrutiny. He's like there's so much scrutiny around this, and I get like the front office is like maybe Vlad was never willing to. He always was going to free agency. Maybe that was always in his mind, but we're not getting that impression from his camp at all. Like he wanted to stay, and if the number was good, he would have took it.
Yeah, and the real question is what was the number, right?
So that's where I was gonna go. Like Jeff Passan said in the scrum, he's like, were they close? And no, like that was just like no. And it's like, okay, they go to Ross and they ask, well, what he doesn't think you were close. And then we get the typical Ross answer. Well, that depends on how you define close.
Close is too big. I think he said close is too big of a thing to define.
Too ambiguous of a term. Too ambiguous of a term, I think was the, I don't know.
Yeah. Like I didn't really understand that because like, and then also like Shapiro came in and said, oh, there is no close. There's only like done or not done, which I heard a lot of people like, oh, well, you can't really argue that. And it's like, well, you kind of can because like, it isn't like, sure, you can say, okay, like getting a deal done is non-binary. You get it done or you don't get it done, but like, or binary, sorry. But like in terms of, them actually getting close or not, that is a real thing. You can be close or not close. Like
there's a way to get around a deal done when you're close. Like you can inch and get back and forth and close. These guys obviously weren't that close. And passing again on Blair and Barker a couple days later was like Vlad turned down a lot of money from what the two numbers he heard were true, and he wasn't 100% sure if those numbers were the correct numbers. He said he heard two of them, but he said both of them were a lot of money. And then again, it's like, well, what's a lot of money? Is it 585? Is it 390? Like it's a very, very vast range of contract value, and I think that's why the deal just hasn't been completed.
It's so hard to say, and without it's impossible to really evaluate the situation properly without knowing what those numbers were, right?
Exactly.
Like if you don't know what he was looking for, what the Blue Jays offered him, like you can speculate and say, oh, they should have offered him more, but you don't know what that more is, right? Or you could say, oh, well, he's asking for too much. You could look at what David Ortiz said the other day and take that as, oh, he's floating Vlad's number out there and trying to convey that information. And like, but that's again, it's just all speculation. You don't really know, right? So without that, it is kind of impossible. I just come back to that. It is so unfortunate given the stance that Vlad's had on it, and given the fact that the Blue Jays, it's like not every player wants to come here. We've seen that, right? Like they haven't been able to sign lots of big ticket free agents they've gone after, despite being finalists, and then that whole thing, right? So,
that's the reason you splurge. That's the reason you splurge. Yeah. You've swung and missed on three big guys. This one you have the sole negotiating rights to. He's sitting in front of you and he wants to be here. Swing big. If you miss big, screw it.
And exactly, because you look at, okay, if they Vlad and Bo walk in free agency and you have that, I think it's $46 million off the books. Yeah, it's 28 for Vlad in his last year of ARB, and then Bo signed that 3-year deal covering his ARB, and the last year's 18. So it's $46 million. You could say, oh, well, then they have 46 extra million dollars theoretically that they could go reallocate to new players, but there's no guarantee that players of that caliber are going to want to sign for that available money, right? So that you gotta have it's an opportunity cost thing, right? Yeah. And it's just so unfortunate because they had the chance to lock up a player who's going to be a perennial all-star, who's going to be one of the best offensive players in baseball for, pretty possibly like the better part of the next decade. And he had the chance to get compensated, I imagine, really well. Like what would have been, you would think at minimum, the third most expensive contract in baseball. He might not have beaten Ohtani or Soto, but it would probably line up to be in that territory. So it looked like it could have been such an ideal outcome for both sides, and it just didn't materialize. It sucks, honestly.
One of the most interesting parts too is there's been rumors that they promised Santander when he signed that Vlad would be here long term, right? And I guess that's a big selling point too of attracting free agents, like you were alluding to. And it's just if you're a premier free agent in the league, why would you come to Toronto if they're really good, if their stars are going to leave, right? And so I think
they can't even keep the guys they brought through the system.
Carlos Berga, I'm not sure, but I do remember seeing floating around they promised Anthony Santander Vlad would be here long term, right?
Yeah, I think there's reports.
So
it's nothing's confirmed, but
and
you're definitely that's your sell. You're
right.
That's your sell to Santander for sure. Yeah. Oh, we're working on Vlad. He's going to be here for the next decade.
And that's pretty believable too.
I mean, it should have been believable. I think this is one of the truly unique situations in the last. I think this is one of the most unique contract situations where he's so young, so volatile. The market just took one of the biggest jumps in the last God knows how long, and I don't really think there's a true comp for this particular situation where he's home. It's hard. There's a lot of comps, but there's no true one that's the same situation.
So that's another thing that I wanted to touch on here. When you look at the comps, because it is you're right, there's no true comp. It's very, very difficult because of course with baseball contracts, we're always trying to draw those lines and find that kind of precedent or baseline to go off of. And then you look at when you look at the youth side of it, and we've discussed here, a player hitting free agency at age 26, you look at Juan Soto, that you can't compare them direct. I mean, neither of them, the fielding and base running are both kind of, non-starters more or less. So from that perspective, you're
basically paying for the bat, but
but Soto's on a different level than Vlad. Through his first 6 seasons, 160 WRC plus to Vlad.
There's no denying that. Yeah.
The on base percentage, obviously he's just it's Ted Williams territory, right? It's a whole other realm,
whole other conversation.
Hitter. Yeah. So it's not the same. And then you look at another player in this year's free agency who would be, who's been a comp for Vlad and Arb in the past, and who's the same position, Pete Alonso, who signs a 2-year, $54 million pillow contract where the second year is a player option with the Mets. So the vast disparity there between those two deals is pretty staggering.
Insanity.
And then you look at some the two other comps I've heard mentioned probably most frequently would be Bryce Harper. So Bryce Harper through his age 25 season, 140 WRC plus, 900 OPS, 184 home runs. Vlad, very similar. When you do the Baseball Reference or the stat head side-by-side comps that you see on social media all the time, their numbers are really similar. Vlad's got a 137 WRC plus, 3 points off, an 863 OPS, 160 home runs, but he's got 24 less home runs, but he's also played over 100 less games through his first 6 seasons than Bryce Harper. So you look at that and it's okay, when Bryce Harper signed his big $300 million contract, he was an outfielder. He wasn't a first baseman, right? So you have to take that into consideration. Rafael Devers is probably the other biggest comp, which was at this point the 13th largest contract in MLB history, 10 years, 313 million. So yeah, it's like it's so tough, really, like right with inflation and when you consider the youth aspect, like it does have to be it has to be in that $400 million range, you'd think.
There is one developing comp I think we can look to, which sucks for us that we're going to look to Vladdy. It's going to be Ellie De La Cruz in the Reds. I know he's a shortstop, but if he pops off this season like he has the potential to, and they're like, it's like a Tatis decision with him. Oh, do we lock him up now? Do we let him wait for Vladdy? He's a homegrown talent. Like, I think the Reds are going to be keeping a very close tab on how this Vladdy situation develops to see how they should play the Ellie De La Cruz situation.
Yeah, and I mean, teams like even before, the Jays are learning from what other teams are setting, right? Like you look at Bobby Witt Jr. getting locked up. You look at guys locking up their young players. Like it's something that is a huge priority. Like Julio Rodriguez as well is another example. Jackson Chourio to the Brewers. Like the guys are
the whole Braves roster.
Yeah, like guys have been getting locked up earlier and earlier by teams for larger sums of money because like it's this opportunity cost thing, right? Like if you don't get to see what they become even if you don't put money on the line and the Jays are looking there in like straight in the face right now.
Wasn't Chourio locked up before he played an MLB game?
Or he played an MLB game.
That's insane.
And that's an organization taking a risk on a player. They're taking a risk on a player. And was
it 10 years?
It's a quantified risk. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pulling it up here.
What you think about that's going to take a while. Like a lot of those are ARB years, so like
8 years, 82 million.
So it's really like still it's a good deal. It's a great bargain for both sides.
It's a solid calculated risk. Like Ozzie Albies is getting paid nothing, right?
Yeah,
he's one of the best second basemen in the league. The thing about Soto, it's like he's one of the best players in baseball. He's super young. It's his fourth team already.
Yeah,
it's crazy,
right? Like that's
crazy.
Nuts.
I mean, the thing about that deal is like it's 10 million average annual value for Chourio. And that's about the market value of a win in free agency right now, like one win above replacement. If he puts up one win above replacement for the duration of that contract, they get their value there.
Yeah, I'll put money on that.
Willing to bet they're going to get a lot more than 8 wins above replacement from Jackson Chourio. How many a year? Let me pull up. How many wins above replacement was it last year?
I would guess. Let me guess.
Let me guess. Pretty
1-9 or yeah, he did have a. Maybe 1-1.
3.8.
Holy shit!
3.8 with
defense, right?
He's already paid off half the value of that contract in his rookie season. Like,
how's the gloves plus? Right? Is that what it is? Or is it mostly
2.5 WAR, 0.7 DWAR?
That blows my mind.
Yeah, he 21 home runs, 79 RBIs.
Okay, yeah. I forgot
he had 117 OPS plus, so he was.
Oh yeah,
above the average. Yeah, he was good, but I
always pictured that fall off he had being a lot harder, but he did. He only struggled for.
He heated up. I'm pretty sure at the end.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah,
after I traded him away.
I mean, we can sit here and talk about Vlad all day, I know, but we should move on at some point. Do you guys have anything else to touch on with Vlad? Or
the one thing I was going to mention, because I this is also a thing I've seen tossed around out there, is the people kind of pushing back against Vlad. Against his value a little bit. When you look at the 2022 down year and saying, oh, well, in 2022, Vlad was worse than Jake Berger. He had a lower WRC plus than Jake Berger. He had 26 home runs rather to Berger's 30. But
compare the ages.
The age. That's exactly. So when you look at a guy who's 24, it's like a lot of guys don't even reach the big leagues by that point. For him to be figuring it out in the big leagues at 24, still being an above average hitter, still pretty rote season for a first baseman, but like you got to chalk it up to that in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a great point to throw it in there. And I will say, if I see one more edit of Vlad in a Dodgers, Yankees, or any other jersey, I'm probably going to start muting the name Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on Twitter.
We'll just move right on past this discussion without talking about anything Instagram related.
Yes. Yeah. We are not touching on that. Yeah.
No.
God.
None of the other podcasts, Blue Jays podcasts that I listen to are, so we won't either. But
I I've honestly blocked it out of my mind. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. So we talked about Vlad, who there is no news there. Things have the situations remain the same. Let's talk about what's changed. Let's talk about some of the new acquisitions, new additions to the team, because there are there's been some good ones. It's been a good offseason, in my opinion, for the Jays. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think there's even like a little bit more excited to be about than there is kind of at a face value or looking at on the surface. So let's get into some of that. So the first transaction of the Blue Jays offseason was not a signing; it was a trade. We saw Spencer Horwitz shipped out to the Guardians, who was then subsequently flipped to the Pirates. He was traded twice within a 2-hour span. He was apparently watching a movie, and he was traded twice while he was in the movie. I can't remember what movie it was. I don't know if
it was whatever was out. That's I can't remember it either.
I'll look it up in a second here once we get into conversation and I have a minute, because I do remember seeing that specifically, and I want to remind myself. But so and then in return, the Jays got Andrés Giménez, former 2022 All-Star second baseman, and right-handed relief pitcher Nick Sandlin. So I'm pretty high on this trade personally. I'm actually very high on it. It took me a minute at first to kind of get into the data because initially when you look at Sandlin's, you get some recency bias in there. You look at his last season. It's a little bit jarring. Like he was a really really poor offensive player last year. 83 WRC plus. I believe he was like the 7th worst qualified hitter in baseball last year. But
Blue Jay.
But the glove is remarkable.
Fuck that glove, brother.
Not even kidding.
It's not. You don't have to. You don't have to preach a slick fielding second baseman to me. That's right up my alley. I was pumped too, but
what are they going for? A third straight team gold glove?
Oh hell yeah!
Oh, they're not going for it.
They're locked in.
It's a lock.
So okay, I was gonna get to this eventually, but so Giménez was won a platinum glove, and he's also I think it was 2023, right? It wasn't last year, but the year before, and he's a 3-time Gold Glover, 3 consecutive seasons. Over the last 3 seasons that he's won these 3 Gold Gloves, he's ranked 2nd in Major League Baseball in defensive runs saved at 59. Do you guys know who the only player in Major League Baseball that has more defensive runs saved than Andrés Giménez over the last 3 seasons?
I'm gonna guess he is currently rehabbing a shoulder surgery injury and has crashed very hard into many walls at Rogers Center.
You are absolutely correct. So the Jays have the 2 defensive runs save leaders over the last 3 seasons.
Dalton Varsho, for those at home who didn't pick up on that reference. But.
Yeah. So yeah, their defense. I mean, they already were the best defense in baseball. You could say over the last 2 seasons, and they're slated to do the same. So before we get any further into some of the specifics about Giménez and Sandlin, what are you guys kind of broad thoughts on this move?
I'm sad, just as a Spencer Horwitz truther, but obviously it makes sense for the Jays, especially if Giménez can get back to his 2022 form at the plate. But regardless, it's an upgrade, right? Even with Horwitz having wrist surgery, which who knows who knew about that one. I like it. They also needed bullpen help, and Sandlin could be good, so I'm all for it.
I would go as far as to say that Sandlin will be quite good. And we have a little bit more to get into that in just a moment. Really quick to touch on while we're on the topic of Spencer Horwitz, because I was also a big Spencer Horwitz fan. Love the plate approach, love the discipline, love his control of the strike zone. He had a ton of really great innate qualities that I could probably go on at length about even past this. But the one thing I really liked about Spencer Horwitz was the on-base quality that he provided with the Jays, which is something they really lack, right? And
we have no on-base percentage guys right now.
Yeah, it's tough. It's pretty tough when you look up and down the order. So a quick aside argument that I wanted to make while we're on the topic is that I saw Spencer Horwitz as the guy, maybe not most likely, but that I thought was the best profiled as a leadoff hitter for the Jays this season before he got traded. Now with him gone, looking up and down the lineup, for me personally, as an analytically inclined individual, I think that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. it should be the leadoff hitter for the Toronto Blue Jays.
We need a counter for how many times that Ian asks or makes the argument for Vlad to lead off.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did it last year too, but I'm not hating on it because I think you have a solid argument behind you. I could see it because we've seen the numbers that the 3-hole just doesn't come up to the plate with runners, let alone in scoring position on base. Like there's 9 times out of 10, you're standing in the box with 2 outs. Not 9 times out of 10, I'm exaggerating, but you're standing in the box with 2 outs and nobody on as the 3-hole. Like it's
the only thing is though, like if you're betting on Bo to return to Bo, right? Like realistically, he's not going to have the same year he did last year, right? So then, because it's going to be Vlad 3, Santander 4, right? So if Bo's 1 or 2, you would expect a lot more than last season. Vlad will be coming up with somebody at least in scoring position, which will probably be Bo. I don't know.
Would you lead off Bo? Would you lead off Bo?
I would be fine leading off Bo. It's just like, I don't know because I don't love the rest of the hitters. I don't mind Vlad.
So I personally have a
Bo 1 who's 2.
I personally have a strong.
Sorry, you guys still. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I think they should like try to get Bo at least maybe some reps at the top of the order. Like he led the league in hits a couple times. I know he doesn't have this stolen base percentage or the on base percentage that you would typically look for in a leadoff guy, but nobody on this roster does. So I think you're gonna have to get creative. Maybe one of the young guys like a Wagner or a Class A or I think maybe those are the only 2 that could just kind of develop into being like, I think Class A has an on-base profile that could eventually get there. I don't know if it'll be this year, but yeah, we're pretty tough for a leadoff hitter right now.
Do you guys have me back there now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I cut for a second. Okay. So with Vlad, my main arguments for the leadoff, and it's the same ones as always. It's the same as when I argued for Justin Turner as the leadoff hitter last season. He has one of the best on base percentages on the Jays roster. He TCs a ton of pitches per plate appearance. And he's going to get the most at bats in the leadoff hole. He's your best hitter. He's going to get the most at bats. So that's my personal argument for it. I do feel like Bo's it seems like he's more likely to lead off. They've talked about wanting to hit Santander behind Vlad. They've talked about wanting to get those 3 into the top 3. So that equals out to Bo, Vlad, Santander, 1, 2, 3.
Screw
right?
it. I would do that. I would try Bo, Vlad, Santander if nobody ends up profiling as a traditional leadoff guy over the spring.
The only other guy I could see like maybe going there would be only if he gets at least closer to his 2022 form would be Giménez, just because of the stolen base threat, right? He's had 30 the past.
Sign me up. If he could get that on base percentage through the roof, or not even through the roof, but just up like
better. He was up 300 last year, right? He had a 298 OBP, 314 the year before, 371 in his All-Star season in 2022. If I'm not saying he's going to get 371, but if he's over 300 again, maybe better than 314 in 2023, but it's the only other option I could really see like kind of working.
I don't dislike it, and I think we actually probably will see it sometimes. And interestingly, I mean, it's I think been a bit more volatile and fluctuated more. But Giménez actually has a better on base percentage than Bo over the last 3 seasons.
So there you go.
324, and Giménez is just above 326. So which neither really, if you're for your leadoff hitter, I'm thinking you want it to be more 330, 340, even north of that. Like you look at traditional leadoff hitters in the modern game, like you want guys that are top of the line on base guys. You want guys that are up around 400 ideally. So
leadoff.
Yeah. The problem is, I mean, his walk rate's crazy, but then he hits 200. So it's yeah.
What was Ernie's on base percentage last year? I'm trying to find it right here. He's not a big on. Yeah,
he doesn't walk at all. His average.
No, he's a huge contact guy, but
yeah,
ball in play. But
in fact, I think he had like the second lowest walk rate in baseball last year.
He does not get to 3 balls. He didn't see big counts at all. So that probably would. Yeah, he's at 299, projected 299 on base percentage this year for Ernie. Yeah. So he's probably out of the conversation. We really got locked into this leadoff leadoff.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Don't get me wrong.
But so
They
while
still
we're
have
on the
Springer.
topic of-
They still have Springer listed on the depth chart here on Fangraphs, but I can tell you that's probably not going to happen.
I think they've already kind of hinted at that, yeah. But while we're on the topic of crazy bat to ball guys and the leadoff spot and Ernie and Giménez, we'll get into Andres's offensive numbers a little bit. So he has crazy high contact rates, high swing rates, but then low and then really low strikeout rates as well, and then also really low walk rates. The profile is quite similar to Ernie Clement. As far as like he gets his bat to everything. He puts the ball in play. He also swings at everything, even pitches out of the zone, but he makes contact on a ton of them. So he almost never strikes out. The ball is getting in play like the vast majority of the time. But again, I think he was like bottom 10. I want to say like seventh to last in terms of walk rate. So he almost never walks. So it's an interesting profile. It makes for exciting baseball. Like the ball's going to be in play, stuff's going to be happening. The big question with him is like, can he get back to 2022? Obviously, he had a 141 WRC plus, 17 home runs. Like with the extremely strong baseline that his defense and base running provide, he had 6.1 wins above replacement that season. He got like down. I think he finished sixth in MVP voting. He got down ballot MVP, like a lot of down ballot.
votes. Yeah, he was sixth.
I think I think they took a lot of flack for the move, but I think it is going to pay off in the long run. I really do. It's a great contract too. When you look at like, it's not like, I think the Guardians didn't like the contract, but when you put it in Toronto's system, it's not a bad contract, if you know what I mean. Like just the way they're spending.
So I've seen comparisons of like Dansby Swanson and Carlos Correa and players like that. Because here's the thing, when you look at the infield defense, obviously he's got tremendous range. He's second best in
it's disgusting range.
He gets to everything, man. Like
it's nothing. I don't know how he mans the entire side of that field, but he basically does.
Well, it's crazy because the numbers back it up, and then when you watch the film, it's like it's incredible. Like
it's gonna be fun watch. We are like that's why
everything.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
And so the other thing is his average arm strength was first among second basemen in 2024. He has a pretty good arm. So I have seen a lot of people theorizing that when Bo most likely leaves after the season, he could theoretically be the Blue Jays shortstop for the next 4 seasons after that, which when you look at, he's going to be paying $23 million a year. That is less than what the likes of Dansby Swanson and Carlos Correa are making to provide strong shortstop defense and be like roughly league average bats, which is kind of what Andres profiles as. So the contract, when you look at it in that context, might play out to be pretty reasonable. The other thing about Andres is the base running. He has 80 stolen bases over the last few years. The Jays are 25th and have been a bottom 5 base running team. So yeah, he's going to provide like more stolen bases and better base running than pretty much anyone on the team over the last bit. He's also a fun one, he's tied for 6th in bunt hits over the past 5 seasons. And then Varsho at 21 and Varsho has the most at 31. So they have a couple guys liable to drop one down.
Here's a quote I'll drop in on the conversation of the lineup I'm seeing on Twitter coming from camp this morning. So new hitting coach Dave Popkins, this is from Keegan Matheson on Twitter. He says that he wants to be the most creative lineup at scoring runs in baseball. Spoke a lot about adapting to certain situations as hitters, knowing when to take a shot and when to look for contact, but it made it clear, I love damage. That's a pleasant sign if you're a Blue Jays fan, if you remember the damage comments from last year from a certain someone, but he loves damage and he also loves contact. So it'll be interesting how they walk that line. Because like the Guardians, where Giménez came from, they were so good at managing the contact to power ratio. They were small ball, but they'd sneak that banger in on you that would kill you every time. And if the Jays can replicate that style of baseball, as long as they're getting some homers, which they found a cleanup hitter, Santander's projected 30 plus bombs. So that's great. I think it's going to be a very different lineup than we've seen. We just got to figure out the leadoff spot.
Yeah, and as far as like just to wrap up Jimenez's offensive profile, I don't. I do think 2022 is a bit of an outlier. Like I do think that's a bit beyond what his offensive capabilities, kind of project to be. Especially like when you look at that season, it's not likely that he'll get back to just because he had a 353 BABIP, so there was some batted ball luck likely coming into play there. And then he also had a 14% home run per fly ball rate. So he was getting a bit lucky with balls leaving the yard that year. It's pretty well above league average. So not likely. However, I don't think he's like an 83 WRC plus guy like he was last year either.
That's really bad. That's really bad.
Closer to like the 2023 where I think he was like just below. It was like 97 or something.
I was gonna say if he can hit 103 WRC plus, like keep with that glove up, like I mean, we're laughing. We're honestly laughing.
He's going to be like a 4-win player at that point. And like both this year, like Steamer and Zips, like Steamer hasn't projected for a 108 and Zips hasn't for like a 104. It's like if he's above league average hitter, that's beautiful. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not expecting much from his bat, but if he surprises me, then awesome. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
But we should talk more about the other part of that deal, who is basically a lefty killer when you think about it. He just murders lefties, and that's something the Jays don't have. And that's Nick Sandlin.
Very interesting, the way that he fits in with the Blue Jays bullpen. As you alluded to there, Zach, given the fact that they only have, one kind of true guy that you could see as a traditional loogie out of the pen, like Ryan Yarbrough. Well, it's not guaranteed he'll make the opening day roster. He's an additional lefty, but he's more that long relief swingman kind of role, innings eater.
He'll be stretched out.
Yeah. So with Sandlin, it's interesting because he is a guy that can get lefties out. He's a guy that can get lefties out really, really well, actually. And he has one weapon in particular that he does it with, which is his like crazy outlier splitter. So just to give a quick rundown on Sandlin and how that all works here. He has the 7th lowest release point in all of baseball. He's a side armor and he releases almost kind of parallel with the ground. So no pitcher in Major League Baseball throws a splitter with a lower release point. And that's out of 79 pitchers to throw at least 50 splitters last season. And it's just like incredible against lefties. So left-handed hitters versus Nick Sandlin splitter last season. He threw it 37.4% of the time against lefties, which is more than he throws it against righties. It was a 0.86 opponent's batting average against, 0.86 slug, which that's right. Only singles got hit off of it.
Crazy.
Yeah, 0.76 WOBA. And it was nearly a 50% whiff rate, 46.5. So last time a lefty got an extra base hit off his splitter was a year and a half ago. And last season, a lefty didn't get a hit off of it for the first 3 months of the season. And then he started, he wasn't throwing it as much then, but then they were seeing how successful it was. So they're like, crank that up, start throwing time. And from that point onward, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right now, but he started throwing his splitter like above 40% of the time against lefties. Like it was his most used pitch against the the platoon advantage, the platoon advantage for the hitters there. So yeah, Nick Sandlin, like they're coming up against Juan Soto and the Mets, or they're going up against like the Orioles lefty laden lineup there. He's probably going to be the guy they're calling on.
Yeah, it's I'll give the Jays front office credit for addressing that need in a creative way. They found a lefty limiter that happens to be a right-handed sidearm specialist, but we were about to have Brandon Little out there taking down these lefty beasts. Like it was not going to be good. So it had to be addressed. It absolutely had to be addressed. And I don't think people realize they did kind of find like you said, and it's not a traditional loogie, but it's someone they're going to call, like Trevor Richards, like you said, like they're going to call him in those spots to come out and, hey, we need a big out here. You're our guy. And we're going to see him in some pretty high leverage situations. And I cannot wait to watch. Like, could you imagine standing on the other side of the batter's box and having that splitter come from it's impossible to pick up. It's impossible to pick up. Like, I can see why righties would have better success from it, because at least you're seeing it come. You can see it and you're like, okay, if it's behind me or if it's at me, there's no way that's a strike. Lefties, they have no idea. No idea. So it's honestly hats off to the organization for finding a pretty creative piece there.
Yeah, they killed two birds with one stone, really, with that. Three birds, honestly, with that trade. You got Giménez, and then Sandlin's a double. You got the lefties.
Oh, man, they took some flack for that
lefties,
deal.
And you add to the bullpen, which was desperately needed.
Yeah, it was a really well done deal, in my opinion. And it's actually a really fun story with Sandlin, how he started throwing from that arm angle. This was kind of detailed in a great piece by Arden Swelling at sportsnet.ca. But he was originally a shortstop coming up in high school, and they needed a pitcher one day. And so he got thrown in there, and he was used to sling. He was most comfortable slinging it sidearm.
Tulo style.
And he was turning double plays and throwing guys out on the bases from shortstop. So they put him in there and they said, okay, that's how you're most comfortable throwing. Go ahead and do it. And he was really successful, and it just took off from there. And that was only like 10 years ago that he started pitching like that. So really kind of interesting how that all came together. I think the trade I think it's a great trade for the Blue Jays. Obviously the Guardians were maybe trying to shed some salary there. The Blue Jays took advantage. Sandlin, he's a really good reliever. He's had an identical, it's kind of funny. He's had an identical 3.75 ERA over the last two seasons and an identical 27.6 strikeout rate both seasons as well.
He's the Chris Davis of pitchers.
Yeah.
Chris Davis with a K, that is.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but yeah, he's a good reliever. And with Giménez there as well. I actually meant to mention this earlier when we were talking about him. It was like the first thing that I had written in the rundown here, and the most important thing to mention, and totally forgot it. But Giménez has more WAR over the last 3 seasons than, get ready for this list, Rafael Devers, Pete Alonso, Teoscar Hernandez, Anthony Santander, Willie Adames, Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger, Bo Bichette, or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think it's like the more you peel back the layers of this trade, we're sounding really pro Blue Jays here, but I don't know why it took so much heat. I really don't. Like, everybody hated this deal off the rip. And hated it. I think it's because WAR isn't perfect. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like WAR is the be all and end all of evaluating.
It's not, but it is.
But it gives an idea.
Those are meaningful numbers for sure.
And especially, I think a lot of the time there's been this swing. Like I feel like defense used to be more valued decades ago, and people used to look at like great defense and really appreciate that and those kind of players. And now I feel like people, I don't know, there's this aversion to it almost where it's like, oh, like it's you want big offensive players, and that kind of gets more attention. Especially with the, in the microcosm of the Blue Jays, because they've won these team gold clubs, but they haven't been a successful team. However, his defense and base running provides such a strong floor and he's going to provide so much value in those areas that, you really even if the offense is terrible, he'll still be a plus value player. And if the offense is even average, then it's a home run of a deal. So, another
Speaking
home
of,
run
you nailed it.
You nailed it. Segue.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the Jays trading away Jimmy Garcia, getting prospect capital in return, and then re-signing him as a free agent this offseason.
That's
hell yeah.
That's exactly what the Guardians did to us on the Roki Sasaki international signing pool money. They took advantage of us. At least we had taken advantage of another front office this offseason to offset that.
There was a great quote that I know Evan pulled from
Shai Davidi's article about Garcia. He basically always wanted to come back home. So the quote was, "The Blue Jays were my first priority. I had a good feeling I will be back here when I got traded. I like it here. I had a good meeting when I left with Ross. I like how they treat people, your family, and the players. It's a little bit different than other teams. So that was kind of nice to hear after dealing with all the Vlad stuff and him not resigning, even though he wants to be here. It's nice. You trade him away, you get solid return, and you bring him right back.
Think about how.
Sorry,
go ahead. Oh yeah. So think about how different the back end of our bullpen looks right now without Yimi.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is going to be out there at least in the 7th, maybe the 8th. We'll see how they shape it up. But without Yimi, we would have been probably losing Nick Sandlin's ability to go out there against a lefty. We probably would have been forced to maybe have him go into a leverage spot where no lefties are coming up. But now you can stash him. I mean, I hate this 3-batter rule. I hate it. We figured out the speed of the game. All right. We figured it out with the pitch clock. Let's have lefty specialists come back to be a thing. I loved it. I loved having that one matchup you looked forward to in the 7th inning. You knew you were going to get a lefty reliever coming out of that pen for that lefty slugger. And it was going to bang. Like Brett Cecil for Big Papi. You knew you were going to get that. Like, I can think of some all-time great postseasons where we saw a lefty coming out. His one job for that entire postseason was to get this guy out. I got on a tangent there, but I hate the 3-batter rule.
Well, now with the ABS, they need it to get the speed back up. The ABS is going to take away from the speed of the game.
Oh yeah. What did you think?
20 seconds.
Yeah, I won't get into that conversation yet. But the ABS was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Another home run, literally, of an acquisition was Anthony Santander. You guys will might be able to remember this off the top of your head. We were into June without a cleanup home run, without a home run for the cleanup spot last year.
Yeah, I was on that a lot, but yeah, I don't have the exact numbers.
I can't remember the exact date, but it was enough to point it out.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
It was May, and it was bad. Like it was a super long stretch.
So they remember who our cleanup hitter was.
Oh, we had like 6. It was a constant revolving door.
Was it our show to start?
No. But so they addressed the cleanup hitter, and he's 6th in MLB home runs over the past 3 seasons, which sneaky. That's sneaky. I would not, if you would have asked me before the signing to name the top 7, I don't think I would have included him.
Yeah, so it was 40. I just pulled it. It's 47 games without a home run from the cleanup hitter, which was the longest drought in MLB history since the 1997 Houston Astros, who went 6
there you go.
games. Yeah. And Bo Bichette eventually broke the
breaking MLB record.
May. So that was bad. Santander, I don't know if he'll hit cleanup. I think personally, I would like to see him or Bo hit cleanup if we're going with the whole lineup optimization kind of discussion.
He profiles as a cleanup hitter, though.
I would say, the Jays' whole lineup profiles as cleanup hitters. They're all like, none of them walk. They're all put the ball in play a ton. It's that kind of thing. But regardless of where he hits, he does hit a ton of home runs. He hit 44 home runs last year. He's 6th in baseball over the last 3 seasons in home runs with 105. The only guys that have more than him over the last 3 seasons are Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso, and Matt Olson. So dude hits bombs.
Yeah. And switch hitter, but he's basically a lefty that we've added. He's going to be taking most of his at-bats from the left side. So
yeah, to that point, he has 1,440 plate appearances from the left side of the plate, again, over the last 3 seasons, and 528 from the right side. So he's taken close to 75% of his swings from the left.
A big step up from Vogelback being your left-handed power bat off-season edition.
Boys, that was tough.
Dark times.
I saw him. He's back out. Pirate spring training. I saw the pick floating around.
He's a hitting coach, right? He's like an assistant hitting coach.
Yeah.
Great for him, man. Hell yeah.
They get him, Kiermaier in the outfield.
Yeah. That was sweet. Yeah. Welcome back, KK. It's cool that he chose the Jays, he's a career-long Ray, and I'm sure if he walked in and wanted to coach their outfielders, he probably could have. Maybe not. Maybe I'm speculating here entirely, but it's cool that he chose Toronto.
Yeah, I think he had a really good, really like Toronto. It was kind of outwardly displayed that and has a good relationship with the organization. The kind of reporting has been. So yeah, we're really cool to see that. But yeah, as far as Santander and the Jays in terms of adding like both a cleanup hitter and a guy who can hit with power from the left side, two huge things that have been demanded by the fan base and just very much discussed in the media over the last couple seasons. So they're actually last in home runs by left-handed hitters since 2018.
That doesn't really shock me, I guess, now that you think about it.
Yeah, and
Gotten out Kevin Biggio every day.
Yeah, or like Varsho, Brandon Belt a couple years back, that's like been their presence from the left side. Like, who else have they had over the last few years? Raimel Tapia is like
Jonathan VR for a couple months.
Yeah,
I'm really struggling to
tough sledding.
Pick a bat out from the left side of the plate that made a for a month that made a difference.
Yeah, like so the most home runs by a left-handed hitter in a season since over the same time period since 2018. Rowdy Tellez hit 21 home runs and I think it was 2018. Justin Smoke hit Switchy, another probably the last Switchy the Jays had before Santander, I think. Hit 20 in 2019 just from the left side. And then Varsho hit 20 from the left side 2 years ago, not last year, but the year before, I believe. So yeah, that's yeah. And then I would say, so you look at Santander, he hit 22 home runs from the left side in 2022, 23 in 2023, and 32 home runs from the left side last year. So it's pretty likely that Anthony Santander hits more home runs from as a lefty than the Jays have had since in the last 7 years.
So it seems like the solution is just finding switch hitters then, right? You get Santander, Smoke before, and then I guess Kendrys Morales before.
Kendrys would be the one.
Who's your all-time
21 in 2018, and he had 28 in 2017.
All-time favorite switch hitting Jay? Who is it? I think mine's Smokey. I think it has to be Smokey for me.
Smokey's the best one. I don't know why, but I always kind of like Deanna Navarro.
He was sweet. Yeah, he was
awesome.
He was a stud back then with the backing up Russie Mart. Oh yeah.
Yeah, even when he was on the Rays, before the Jays, I liked him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so the other interesting thing about Santander is that he's pretty not splits neutral, of course, but close to splits neutral between hitting from the right side or the left side. He has a 119 WRC plus as a left-handed hitter over the last few years, and a 135 as a right-handed hitter. So yeah, that's he's obviously better from the right side. He's a natural right-handed hitter. But last season, for example, he had a better WRC plus from the left side. He was a 132 from the left side versus 123 from the right. So it's pretty even. And that's pretty cool. There are guys who aren't, even splits guys. You look at a Tommy Edman or a Ketel Marte. It's those guys should just hit from the right side. They shouldn't even bother.
Oh, it's so frustrating to see some of these guys try and switch hit where it's dude, I get it. It's going to get you a bag maybe one day, or it might no, just give it up. Focus on one side of the plate. It's hard enough to hit in the big leagues.
Good on the resume.
Yeah, but it's hard enough to hit in the big leagues from one side of the plate, man. Why are we trying to figure out two? It's a special talent for special people.
He was pretty brutal was it the right side for a bit, and then
I believe so.
Yeah,
there was one of them he really struggled with, but now he's coming to a little closer. I'm trying to figure out the last Blue Jay to hit a home run from both sides of the plate because we saw Ellie De La Cruz do it in the spring training opener.
You mean both
in the same game?
Same game? Oh,
in the same game. I don't think it's probably ever happened.
Try to query that search. I honestly have no idea yet. I'm not sure if it has.
Yeah, there's no record of a Toronto Blue Jay hitting a home run from both sides of the plate. Of course.
Yeah, I was gonna say that he's Justin Smoke if anyone, but
no, we saw Ellie do it first spring game, and I heard Matt Vasgersian, I think, talking about it on MLB Network, and it's true. It kind of goes underrated as one of the coolest things in baseball. To be able to hit a home run from both sides of the plate in the same game, that's a special, special talent to have. Let alone in a minor league, a grapefruit league game, I don't care. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
It's truly cool.
Just to wrap up on switchies and on Santander, he has some other quirks to his hitting. He's a bad ball hitter. Like, he hits a ton of pitches out of the zone. And he also just like pulls fly balls an absolute ton. Like, he has a top of the league fly ball percentage. He was first last year in the league in fly ball percentage. And he's always like very high percentile, like, 80th, 90th percentile in terms of pull rate. So yeah, he's just yanking them, dude.
Yeah, I love to see that. We love to see pulled bombs in Rogers Center. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I do want to say that I don't know if it's going to help Vladdy and Bo particularly in the lineup, but I don't think it's going to hurt them to have a lefty threat in there, because now, before you would just plan for the righties, and you just never had to worry about a left-handed threat. Now at least you have a left-handed hitter in there to break up the righties. That is a threat. He's a legitimate threat. And now when they're going to their bullpen, they're going to say, oh, we might have to consider the fact that Anthony's up. We might have to go for someone who's better on lefties than righty. Like, I think it's going to help them. I don't know if we're going to be able to quantify it, but I don't think it's going to hurt them.
Especially if some of the younger guys step up, like a Will Wagner or a Joey Loperfido, or Varsho gets back to, his last year in Arizona form when he's back from injury, right? It's just plus.
Yeah, they do have potential to have a handful of strong left-handed bats in the lineup. But yeah, especially if some of those younger guys pan out.
It's a big shift from last year.
Yeah, and it should just be fun regardless. Like same thing with guys like Clement and Giménez. Santander is interesting because he's another guy that just like puts the bat on the ball a ton. It's in play a lot of the time, and he's kind of one of those rare exceptions where he does it with power. Like, his on base percentage is pretty low. But yeah, he's one of those like 300 on base, 500 slug guys where he's just like, he's putting the bat on the ball. He's not walking, and it makes for fun baseball. Like, he has the second most home runs, 9 home runs on pitches less than 1.5 feet off the ground. Over the last,
we have the highest hitting home run hitter and the lowest hitting home run hitter. Or was it? No, Ernie was low too, wasn't he?
Both, and Santander hits high ones as well. Like he's like he reminds me of Vladimir Guerrero Sr. Like, he golfs some, like he just chases outside the zone all the time. I remember last year against the Jays, in the same game, he golfed one that was way down below the zone, and then he also hit one, I think it was from Kevin Gausman, that was like way outside as well. And it was a 2-homer game. And
that's gonna be the most frustrating thing as a starting pitcher, to have a good pitch, or like maybe miss completely.
So far outside.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that should be really fun to watch, honestly. Like, I'm excited to watch Santander, and just kind of the general brand of baseball that the Jays will be playing. So after Santander, the Jays went back to the bullpen. Same thing we were talking earlier with the additions of Sandlin and Garcia. The Jays had a huge need there, obviously. They were arguably the worst bullpen in baseball last year. They had, I think it was negative 2.5 F4, and the B WAR was like, it was below -3, which is the worst in baseball. They had a 4.84 ERA in the bullpen, and I think it was which was second to last in baseball. The only one that was worse was the Rockies, by the way. Yeah, and and then a 4.82 FIP, which I think was the worst in baseball. Their strikeout minus walk rate was, I think, 11.3% or something like that, which was 27th in baseball. So yeah, their bullpen was like god awful last year. And then as a result, there was a lot of like consternation, or kind of, questioning the Jays front office, like, oh, they've never spent on relief arms before. Are they really going to do this? Most people thought, okay, probably not. And they bucked that, and they did. Like, they gave out their 2 largest monetary commitments to relievers in the history of this front office. First with $15 million over 2 years of Jimmy Garcia, 7.5 AEV, and then Hoffman was 3 years, 33, 11 a year.
11.
So like, I mean, they really kind of they shocked me there. I thought they'd maybe spend a bit, but they locked up, like, honestly, in my opinion, probably a top 10 reliever in baseball in Jeff Hoffman.
And former Jay.
And former
Jay.
Jay.
And you bring him back.
Yeah,
fun storyline.
As long as like he says the shoulder's a non-issue, and I'm inclined to believe him until I see him not. So I'm excited. I'm really if he's out there on the mound, I think it's going to be a good, at least first year and a half contract. It's going to be a good time for sure.
Well, the
worry
Jays
about the other year and a half there.
The Jays front office was clearly comfortable enough with the injury, right? And then after he signed, there were the reports like Baltimore and who was it, Atlanta, also backed off last minute.
Yeah,
yeah. I listened to Hoffman's presser, his introductory presser, and he basically said like, yeah, like I talked to the Jays doctors, they didn't see any problems. I disagreed with Baltimore. I disagreed with Atlanta. Like, I think it just all depends on who the doctors are and what they see and what caused, like, is that concerning to one doctor? Is it concerning to another? And yeah, we're going to see how it pays out. That's for sure.
Yeah. I've also read reports and seen some information out there that the Orioles are like historically known to be stingy with their injury reports, specifically with pitchers. Yeah, like, I mean, the other thing to consider is like, I saw this put out in an article as well. Like, you look at any pitcher's X-rays or MRIs on their elbow or shoulder at any point of the season, you're gonna find something. They're never completely clean. So like, there's always going to be something there, and it's very possible that there's multiple pitchers on the Blue Jays staff right now that are pitching through something worse than whatever popped up on Jeff Hoffman's.
That is a very, very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I mean, obviously, it's not nothing. It's sure something.
It's concerning for sure.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned. To my point on him being a top 10 reliever in baseball, he is top 10 in wins above replacement, ERA, WHIP, FIP, so fielding independent pitching for anyone who doesn't know, essentially ERA, but without balls in play. So only stuff pitchers can control, home runs, walks.
Very good stat for fantasy.
Yeah, FIP is a good stat. And batting, he's also top 10 in opponents' batting average against. And again, probably the best stat for relievers and one of the statistics that front offices emphasize most heavily, strikeout minus walk rate. He's 8th in strikeout minus walk rate. And this is all over the past 2 seasons. So that puts him right in the conversation with names like Josh Hader, Aroldis Chapman. He's just a little bit below the top of the line guys like Edwin Diaz and Kate Smith. Yeah, and the reason why you kind of emphasize that strikeout minus walk rate is because it's for the same reason as fielding independent pitching there. A strikeout is a strikeout. A walk is a walk. Like, there's no, batted ball variance. There's no, the defense isn't being factored in. The pitcher can control that result. Absolutely.
He's being a dog and he's going to get the job done, or he's absolutely putting guys on the loading traffic on the bases type thing.
Yeah. So, and when you look at that, like, Hoffman is a top of the line reliever. Like, he was an all-star last year. So yeah, it's pretty exciting addition, and he should be, slated to see save opportunities for the Jays.
It's great. High K percentage and high fastball velo are something we have not seen at the back end of the bullpen for a while. So he's not like crazy top end, like he's going to hit you with 100, but he sits hard. He's throwing it hard. And that's definitely going to it's going to play at the back end, as we have seen for the last few years.
What about, let's go to arguably the most fun acquisition, 3-time Cy Young winner, 8-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion, and 2 different color eyeballs, Max Scherzer.
That's it. You had to include that for sure.
It's probably the most important stat.
Definitely the coolest.
I mean, yeah, it's just crazy looking, right? It adds so much. The kids call it aura, right?
Yeah,
to Scherzer.
You sounded 80 there, bro.
I can't say it seriously. I can't actually say.
I know.
You're the oldest one on this.
Yeah, it's showing.
But when you think of the quintessential Mad Dog, well, he's Mad Dog Max. Like, he is the bully on the mound. Like, he's going to stare through your soul and you're going to shit your pants type pitcher. Yeah, he's 36.
No,
7?
he's 40, dude.
40? Oh my God, yeah. I was gonna say, yeah. I can't believe we're that old, man.
It's just cool to look at his career stats and see
yeah.
nearly 3,000 innings pitched, and he's got a 3.16 ERA.
Oh, it's gross, man. He's been like one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball through his career. He's like a bona fide first ballot Hall of Famer. He's going to be throwing innings for the Blue Jays this year. Hopefully, a good deal of them. Like he hasn't, been particularly healthy over the past few years. Obviously, he was out going into the playoffs when he won his second World Series with the Texas Rangers in 2023. He only made 9 starts, I believe, last season. So hopefully he's able to maintain his health. The Blue Jays have been really, really effective at keeping their starters healthy, which, maybe in part is the reason why one of the reasons he signed here. When you look at guys like Gosman, Barrios, and Bassett, who are all in the top 8 of innings pitched over the last 3 seasons. And if he does manage to stay healthy, he is 122 innings away from eclipsing 3,000. So that'd be a pretty remarkable milestone for him to achieve in a Jays uniform.
Oh, I hope it's at Rogers Center.
He's one of those guys where it's like you probably get like a jersey or a shirt of him just because of how fucking cool it is that he's on your team.
Yeah.
Even if
a Jays jersey
season, it's just like it's so cool, man.
That would go incredibly hard. I hadn't even considered that. Now that you're mentioning it, that is now
first game of the season.
My baseball
$500 on beers, hot dogs, and a jersey.
Yeah. In like 20 years from now, we'll look back at like random Blue Jays that were like, oh yeah, he was a Blue Jay. Like
Max
Max Scherzer is going to be definitely atop the list. I think Jose Canseco is atop the list right now. We're like, oh yeah, he was a Blue Jay. What? But like, I think that's going to be one of the names where we're like, oh yeah, Max Scherzer, he was a Blue Jay for a year.
Yeah, it's just
cool.
I'm
trying to remember there's another wild one that I always think of. Sorry,
Frank Thomas.
No, Frank Thomas. See, I was like a kid, and like he just 500th home run as a Jay. I don't know. That one was like kind of normal to me. Maybe because of the age, but
yeah, I think me and Evan are on the same wavelength with that one. We were a little too young for that.
Yeah.
When was he?
I'm really getting put on blast for my.
You're like 2 years older than me, bro. You're not that older than me.
In this episode,
we're acting like you're like 45.
Yeah, I'm over the hill, man. It's almost over.
Frank Thomas.
But so Vladdy Senior played for a year, or for like he signed. Did he ever? I'm trying to think. I'm gonna go look that up. I'm pretty sure Vladdy Senior did.
Yeah,
I wasn't that young. I was 7 when Frank Thomas was a Blue Jay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's all the acquisitions. Those are all the major acquisitions. There are some other smaller ones that maybe we'll get to the next episode, like Amir Garrett, like Ryan Yarbrough, that could potentially factor in, not guarantees to make the opening day roster. But now that we've gone through all of those offseason acquisitions, let's kind of see how they slot into the roster, and what we're kind of looking at for the 26-man opening day roster. Heading out of camp. So for the bullpen, with the additions of Hoffman and Garcia at the back end, it looks pretty solidified in my opinion. I think there's 7 guys that you can kind of lock in there as guarantees. Obviously the 2 of them, we have Chad Green, Uriel Rodriguez, who will be moved to the bullpen with the addition of Scherzer in the rotation. And then Nick Sandlin, of course. Eric Swanson figures to slot in there after how he kind of shored things up and put together some strong results after struggling at the end of last season, after struggling at the start of the year. And then the lone lefty, Brendan Little, probably is a lock there as well, just considering that he is the only lefty. So then that leaves like a group of like 4 to 6 guys probably in competition for the final spot. We're looking at Yarbrough, Ryan Burr, Tommy Nance, Zach Pop, the optionless Zach Pop,
yes,
and Josh Walker and Nick Robertson are maybe guys in the periphery there as well. So who do you guys real quick, because we're running out of time here, lightning round on who you guys pick for the bullpen, and maybe quick reason why?
I think you nailed it. The only one, maybe see Josh Walker up a few times just for the extra lefty. Yarbrough too. Lefty could give you some spot starts here and there.
I'm thinking it depends on how they want to play Zach Pop's options. I'm thinking he's going to be the one that does break camp. And I think we should keep an eye on Easton Lucas as well. I don't know what I really don't know what the plan is for him, but I could see him kind of sneaking his way in there with an injury or two. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
I like the Josh Walker and Nick Robertson shouts. Those are probably, I feel like we're going to see all these guys at some point. It's a major league bullpen for sure, but breaking out of camp, I think I'll give the edge to Pop.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick Ryan Yarbrough just for the length. I think they have him as like a guy that can eat some innings and come in middle relief and kind of clean up the mess a little bit at times. But and then that allows them to maybe have Yariel focus a little bit more on like a a 1 inning role and his stuff playing up in those kind of moments, which I think could work really well for them. And then real quick lightning round as well on the bench. So starters, there's obviously 5 starters solidified. You look through the Jays starting lineup, it's all pretty solidified as well at all the positions. Except for, you're going to have a guy in the outfield for Dalton Varsho to start the season. So out of the potential guys in center, there's a few options: Loperfido, Clase, Miles Straw, which we didn't really talk about today in depth, but maybe we'll touch on that in the future as well. Who do you guys pick to occupy center to start the season?
Either Loperfido or Clase, preferably Loperfido, just because I like him and I want him to succeed.
Yeah. Spring training is going to have a lot, obviously, to deal with this. I think with the Varsho injury, we're going to see Straw. I think we're going to see him at the start of the season. I don't know for how long, but I'm going to say Straw is going to be probably in the mix for some at bats at the start of the season.
I'm also going to agree that we're going to see Straw. I think it'll be a mix of Loperfido and Straw. So that's about all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us on the first episode of Bullpen Banter in a while. There was no Jays game today. They got rained out at Joker Marchant Stadium in Lakeland. They were supposed to play the Tigers. But hey, we got to talk some ball instead. And you know what they say, Bull Durham, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains, right? So that's the other 3 true outcomes, aside from the analytical ones that we like. So yeah, thanks.
The Rays are in for a tough one this summer.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll be back with weekly episodes on Monday, and take care.